If you were at college, then after college, I assume is when Facebook picked you up.
Yeah, I mean, it was like I was in college, and then the book kind of picks up on this story, but I was working for a design agency in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and just building simple websites. And then all of a sudden, Facebook announced their platform where you could build games and apps. And I was like, oh, wow, this seems like something. So I went home that night and I built a TechCrunch app for the blog TechCrunch, the big tech blog. And I sent it to their tips at TechCrunch. And that night, Michael Arrington, the founder of TechCrunch, hit me up on email and he was like, hey, let's jump on Skype. I want to talk about this. And so it was like 10 o'clock at night on a Friday. I still remember I'm talking to Michael Arrington and he's like, this is great. We're going to do a post about this. Who should I attribute it to? And I said, give it, just say PDG Creative did it, the design agency I was working for, because I didn't really know if I was
But
supposed to be
that's
doing
nice of
anything on
you.
the side. And so anyway, we did the post and our agency blew up overnight from, Oklahoma little websites
Of
to,
course.
building apps for New York Times and Guy Kawasaki and,
No kidding.
MSNBC, like overnight. And so that's what really spurred me to go ahead and put my hat in the arena to move to Silicon Valley. And so I gave PDG Creative the option. I said, hey, you guys can move with me. I'll start an office in San Francisco and, we could all do it together. And they said, no, we'd rather just stay here in Oklahoma. And so
Right.
I ended up taking cold emailed my way into Silicon Valley, and I actually share that email in the book as well. And and then how I got the job was basically, they weren't sure, it was a San Francisco company, and they were like, look, this kid's in Oklahoma, so they
Mhm.
sent me a Photoshop file, and they said, we want to see what you can do. Can you convert this into HTML and CSS? This is before AI and all that.
My gosh.
And so, yeah, I printed out the design file and put it next to me and just hand coded the HTML and the CSS looking at the file and sent it back about an hour later. They weren't expecting it until like the next day.
Right.
And they were like, this is really impressive. When can you be out here? And
Whoa.
so,
Okay. So that was like your interview essentially, because that's what they do, right? These Silicon Valley companies, they don't want to just
mhm,
interview you. They want to give you a project and see if you can kind of solve it on your own. It gives them an insight on how you think, how you solve problems.
totally.
And then there's like an
Yep.
extended interview process as well, right? Where they're like, hey, come on over and stay with us for a month kind of thing.
Yeah, it was kind of wild because I was actually interviewing at two different companies at the same time. One of them flew me out. And so I went out and did the interview. It was actually a smaller design agency called Zerb. They're still around, one of the top UI, UX agencies in the world. And they flew me out for all day session interview. And at the end, they gave me an offer. And so I went back to the hotel that night. And this was in Campbell, California, which is a suburb of San Jose. And so I went back to the hotel. I was just trying to relax. It was like 9 o'clock. I just had done getting beers with the team and was kind of tired. But then the other startup in Berkeley called me up and they were like, "Hey, we saw on Twitter that you're in the Bay Area. Would you be interested in coming by tomorrow for an interview?" And I said, "Well,
Wow.
actually, my flight's at like 7 a.m. and I'm with another company, so I can't really make that work." And they were like, "Oh, well, which hotel are you staying at?" And I told
We're
them,
in the
and they're like,
lobby,
"Would you be
actually.
open to having a beer tonight?" And I was like, "Look, if you show up in the lobby, I won't say no." And so, sure enough, it was like the whole leadership team's 5 people showed up in the lobby. CEO, CTO, and everyone else, founders. And yeah, we ended up. They loved me and ended up. They asked me, "Do I have an offer?" I said yes. I told them how much it was, and I said it's like
What was the
45K.